Some of you have walked through long, dry seasons where it felt like time was working against you. You watched opportunities slip away, relationships fade, and energy drain from your body and spirit. You've been through storms that left you feeling like a shadow of who you used to be. But the God who formed time is not intimidated by your years of loss. He's not just the God of new things. He's the God who can go back into your past and pull purpose out of pain, beauty out of ashes, and joy out of sorrow. When God starts restoring your lost years, the first sign is a renewed hunger for Him. Where once your soul was silent, now it cries out. Where you once drifted, now you're pressing in. That's not coincidence. It's the first sign that restoration has begun. Then, doors that were once sealed shut start to creak open again. People you thought forgot you suddenly remember your name. Opportunities you counted out begin to reappear, and favor starts to follow you. You see, when restoration begins, resurrection follows. God isn't just bringing things back. He's raising them up with new life. The same doors that were closed during your season of silence become gateways in your season of restoration. The enemy wants you to believe that delay means denial, but God is proving that delay was divine setup. You start to see that all your pain had a purpose. What nearly broke you now builds others. What caused you shame becomes your story of strength. You speak from the place of survival, and someone else finds healing in your testimony. That's not just healing, that's transformation. Restoration means the pain doesn't control you anymore. You no longer live in what happened. You walk in what God is doing through it. Your scars become signs of grace, and your past becomes proof that God can redeem anything. Then something else happens. You feel peace where there used to be chaos. You sleep again. You laugh again. You no longer wait for the next disaster, because your soul knows the storm has passed. Even when things aren't perfect, your heart is at rest. This peace isn't manufactured, it's a sign. It's heaven's announcement that God has stepped into your timeline and said, enough. Where there was once torment, there is now trust. You're not just surviving, you're resting in the promise. As the peace takes root, so does your imagination. You start dreaming again, your vision clears. The passion you buried under disappointment starts to breathe again. You begin making plans, not out of fear, but out of faith. You write again, you build again, you believe again. That's a sure sign that God is restoring your years. Because when God restores, He doesn't just fix what's broken. He revives what was forgotten. Hope is not just alive, it's active, and God doesn't stop there. He begins to send people, the right people, people who speak life when you feel low, people who hold up your arms when you feel weak, people who walk with you, not just because of what you can do, but because of who you are becoming. Restoration is rarely done in isolation. God aligns you with those who water your purpose, affirm your calling, and help you carry the weight of your destiny. You know it's restoration when the company around you starts to match the calling within you. Finally, you begin to move in a new rhythm. It's not just recovery, it's acceleration. God starts multiplying your efforts, redeeming your time, giving you double for every year the enemy tried to steal. You move faster, stronger, bolder. What took others a decade takes you a year, not because of who you are, but because of what God is doing through you. This is more than a comeback, it's payback. The years weren't wasted, they were planted. And now you're stepping into a harvest that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, and minds have not imagined. God is restoring your lost years, and the rest of your life will be the best of your life. There comes a time in the life of every believer when it feels like the doors have been sealed shut. You tried, you knocked, you waited, and still nothing moved. Rejection became routine, and disappointment started to feel like your destiny. But when God begins to restore your lost years, one of the surest signs is that doors you thought were permanently closed begin to swing open, not because you forced them, not because you manipulated your way in, but because heaven has declared its time. What used to deny you access now welcomes you in. What once said no now makes room for you. You don't have to chase what's already yours. Restoration brings it back to your feet. This kind of restoration doesn't come subtly. It comes with a shift, The same boardroom that overlooked you is now requesting your insight. The company that said you weren't qualified is now offering you the position. The scholarship you missed out on, the opportunity you thought was gone, the dream that got buried under years of silence, they all start rising again. It's not just about second chances, it's about divine alignment. God has a way of preparing the same places that rejected you to now recognize you. It's not just the door that's changed, it's you. You're walking in with more clarity, more faith, more fire, and don't be surprised when these doors open without you having to knock. That's how God restores. He doesn't just return what you lost, He elevates it. You were waiting for the door to open like it did before, but restoration rarely looks like repetition. God has a new way, a better strategy, a divine connection you didn't see coming. Suddenly you find yourself in rooms you didn't apply for, sitting at tables you didn't build. That's not coincidence. That's restoration working in full motion. It's heaven reminding you that time in the wilderness wasn't wasted. It was preparation. When these doors open, they don't just bring opportunity, they bring healing. All those years you questioned your worth, all those nights you blamed yourself for the closed doors, God uses the new access to affirm your identity. You realize you were never unworthy, just undiscovered. And now God is putting you on display, not for your glory, but for His. You're not walking through the door to prove a point. You're walking through to fulfill a purpose. The rejection you faced wasn't the end. It was the redirection to something greater. Restoration also brings a rhythm to your life, where once you were frantically trying to make things happen, now things start to unfold with ease. Favor goes before you, grace meets you, resources find you, you're no longer begging to be seen. You're moving in a flow that only God can orchestrate. This isn't hustle, it's harvest. You'll look back and realize that the closed doors were not punishment, they were protection. You weren't being denied, you were being developed, and what's most powerful is that these open doors come with peace. You're not anxious this time, you're not insecure this time. You walk through knowing that what God opens, no man can shut. That confidence is the fruit of restoration. You're not striving for validation. You're resting in God's confirmation. When He restores, He removes the striving and replaces it with stability. You stop performing and start walking in purpose. You begin to understand that open doors are not just blessings. They are assignments. So don't panic when the doors start opening again. Don't shrink back. Don't question your worth. Step in. Step up. Step through. This is the evidence that God is restoring your lost years. The things you thought were behind you are now unfolding in front of you. The access you lost is being redeemed. And as you walk through those doors, remember it was never about what was on the other side. It was about becoming who you needed to be so you could handle what was waiting for you. This is not a comeback. This is the manifestation of restoration. There comes a moment in life when everything you went through begins to make sense. The heartbreaks, the failures, the disappointments, all those things that once seemed random and unfair, suddenly reveal a deeper purpose. When God begins to restore your lost years, one of the clearest signs is that your pain starts turning into purpose. You no longer see your story as one of defeat, but one of development. What once caused you shame now becomes the source of your strength. The very things that almost broke you become the very things God uses to bless others through you. You start to understand that your survival was never just about you. It was about someone else finding their way through your testimony. Your story becomes your sermon, and your scars become your testimony. You no longer hide what happened to you. Instead, you share it boldly because you know someone needs to hear it. Pain that once silenced you now empowers your voice. The tears you cried in secret begin to water someone else's dry place. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start declaring, "This happened for a reason." There's a shift in your spirit where what you once resented, you now respect, because it matured you, strengthened you, and prepared you. You begin to walk differently. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence because you've been through something and made it out. There's a wisdom in your words now. You don't talk like someone who's read about it. You talk like someone who's lived it. And that carries weight. People listen differently because your life speaks before your mouth opens. There is a depth in you that pain produced, and that depth is what draws people in. They may not know your whole story, but they can feel your authority. In this season of restoration, your perspective begins to shift. You no longer see time as wasted. You realize that what looked like delay was actually preparation. God wasn't just watching you suffer, He was shaping you. The waiting room became the training ground. The betrayal taught you boundaries. The loss taught you value. The silence taught you how to listen. Everything had a lesson, and every lesson is now a part of your purpose. Restoration doesn't erase your past, it redeems it. You become less reactive and more responsive. You stop living in defense mode and start moving with intention. You're no longer trying to prove yourself or fix what people think. You've been through too much to live small. You understand now that the pain was an investment, and purpose is the return. You start moving with clarity. You make decisions with courage. You speak with conviction. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've seen God carry you through what should have destroyed you. There's a peace that settles in when your pain finds its place. You no longer need everything to be perfect. You're no longer chasing validation. You've learned how to sit with your story and find power in it. There is no more shame, no more hiding, no more pretending. You realize that God's restoration didn't come to erase your wounds. It came to heal them and make them useful. The same hands that broke now build. The same eyes that cried now see clearer. And the same heart that was shattered now beats with new purpose. This is the beauty of divine restoration. It doesn't just bring things back, it brings them back better, stronger, and more meaningful. When your pain becomes purpose, you realize that you didn't just go through it. You grew through it. And now every step you take is proof that God can use even the most broken places of your life to birth something beautiful. You walk with assurance not because life has been easy, but because God has been faithful, and through it all, your pain has not been wasted. It has been transformed. When God begins restoring your lost years, one of the clearest signs is a deep, undeniable peace settling over your life. It's not the kind of peace that comes from everything going right. In fact, your circumstances might still be messy, uncertain, even chaotic. But something has shifted on the inside. The fear that used to grip your heart doesn't have the same hold. The anxiety that kept you up at night begins to fade. You find yourself breathing deeper, worrying less, and resting more. It's not that trouble no longer exists. It's that it no longer owns you. This peace is different from relief. Relief comes and goes with changing situations, but peace is rooted in presence, the presence of God. When restoration begins, peace shows up before the breakthrough does. It's a sign that God is healing not just what happened around you, but what happened inside of you. The constant mental battles, the emotional fatigue, the heaviness in your spirit all begin to lift. You might not be able to explain it, but you can feel it. It's like the storm inside you has been silenced, even if the one outside still rages. You'll notice that things which once triggered you don't affect you the same way. The people who used to get under your skin no longer disturb your spirit. The conversations that once drained you now roll off your shoulders. This isn't indifference, it's maturity. It's the result of being rooted in something greater than your environment. God is anchoring you in peace so you won't be tossed around by every wave that comes. Restoration is not just about getting things back, it's about becoming someone who can live free no matter what. You stop chasing after answers and start trusting the process. There's a surrender that comes with this peace, not the kind that gives up, but the kind that gives in to God's timing. You stop fighting battles that aren't yours. You stop replaying old conversations. You stop carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. Peace teaches you what to release, what to keep, and what to wait for. It allows you to enjoy the present instead of being imprisoned by the past or obsessed with the future. This peace also gives you the ability to hear God more clearly. With less noise in your mind and less turmoil in your soul, His voice rises above the clutter. He begins to guide you gently, not just through doors of opportunity, but into deeper places of healing. You stop being reactive and start being responsive. You're no longer driven by fear or urgency. You're moving with intention, led by grace, not pressure. That's what peace does. It steadies you when everything else is shifting. There's a noticeable difference in how you carry yourself. People begin to ask what's changed. You're smiling more, laughing again, showing up with joy, not because life is perfect, but because your spirit is. You're not masking your struggles. You've just learned how to rise above them. The chaos that used to control your mood now has to bow to the peace within you. That's restoration in motion. It begins inward and flows outward. Others see it even before you fully recognize it in yourself. Eventually, you begin to protect this peace. You learn to say no to what threatens it and yes to what nourishes it. You guard your space, your mind, your heart, because you finally understand the value of what God has given you. Peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's not just the absence of trouble, it's the presence of God's order in your life. And once you have it, you won't want to live without it again. This is one of the most powerful signs that your lost years are being restored. Not because the storm stopped, but because you have. One of the most beautiful signs that God is restoring your lost years is when you begin to dream again. After seasons of disappointment and delay, dreams can start to feel dangerous. You learn to lower your expectations just to protect your heart. You tell yourself not to get your hopes up so you won't be hurt again. But when God breathes restoration into your life, that cautious heart begins to soften. That fearful mind begins to clear. The hope that was buried under layers of pain starts to rise to the surface, not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because something inside you has awakened. You find yourself imagining a future again. You start to plan, even if the path isn't perfectly laid out. You begin to speak about possibilities instead of only problems. The voice of hope gets louder than the voice of fear. Where there was once only survival, there is now vision. You can feel life returning to places inside you that had gone numb. It's not just optimism. It's not denial. It's faith. You're not dreaming because things are easy. You're dreaming because you finally believe it's safe to hope again. Your creativity starts to stir. You get new ideas. You begin thinking about things you used to love. You open old journals, pick up unfinished projects, revisit desires that once felt too painful to touch. And it doesn't feel silly or wasteful like it once did. It feels right. It feels timely. It feels like God is inviting you to pick up what you laid down, not to repeat the past, but to redeem it. He's showing you that nothing is too far gone, and no dream is too broken for his hands to restore. What's different this time is the source of your dreaming. Before, your dreams may have been rooted in ambition, comparison, or pressure, but now they are rooted in purpose. They are born from a place of alignment with who you truly are and what God has shown you. These dreams don't drain you, they energize you. They don't stress you, they stretch you. They call you higher but keep you grounded. You begin to dream from a healed place, and that's what makes the dream sustainable. As you embrace these new dreams, you notice that fear doesn't disappear, but it doesn't control you either. You still feel uncertain, but now you move forward anyway. You still have questions, but they don't stop your momentum. That is restoration at work, giving you courage in the midst of uncertainty, clarity in the midst of transition. You're no longer paralyzed by what went wrong. You're propelled by what could go right. You walk by faith, even if it's one small step at a time. People may not understand why you're dreaming again. Some may remind you of the past. Some may question your timing. But restoration will make you bold. It will make you relentless. When you've seen how far God has brought you, you stop asking for permission to move forward. You no longer need everyone to believe in your dream because you finally believe in it yourself. And you trust the one who placed it inside you. You know that if he gave it to you, he will give you what you need to carry it through. Eventually, you'll look back and realize that dreaming again wasn't just a sign of recovery. It was a catalyst for it. God used your willingness to hope as the opening for healing, and now the dream is no longer just about what you want to do. It's about who you've become. You're no longer someone nursing old wounds. You're someone walking in new purpose, and that dream, once lost in the fog of your past, is now leading you into the future God always had in mind. One of the most powerful ways God begins to restore your lost years is through the people He brings into your life. After seasons of isolation, betrayal, or disappointment, it can be hard to trust again. You may have grown used to doing life alone, protecting yourself from more pain and avoiding deep connections. But restoration often starts when God begins to surround you with people who reflect His heart. These are not just companions, they are carriers of purpose. They don't come to take from you, they come to pour into you. They speak life where others spoke doubt, and they see greatness in you even when you can't see it yourself. You start to notice that these people aren't impressed by what you have, but are drawn to who you are becoming. They show up not just when you're on the mountaintop, but when you're in the valley. They stand with you when you're unsure, and they remind you of your calling when you've forgotten it. These are people who know how to sit in silence, pray without needing applause, and push you forward without needing credit. You begin to realize that this kind of support isn't random, it's divine. God is restoring your years by sending voices of healing, strength, and wisdom into your life. These relationships bring a new level of alignment. You no longer have to shrink yourself to be accepted. You don't have to explain your growth or apologize for your progress. The right people encourage your evolution. They celebrate your freedom. They see your process and still choose to walk with you. God uses them to remind you that you're not too broken to be loved, not too late to be chosen, and not too far gone to be called. It's a shift from survival-based connections to purpose-based partnerships. As these divine connections form, something begins to change inside of you. You stop trying to do everything alone. You begin to open your heart, slowly but surely, and trust starts to replace suspicion. You share your vision again. You receive encouragement without suspicion. You start believing that maybe, just maybe, God is restoring not only what you lost, but what you never had, a true community. You understand that restoration is not just about things being rebuilt around you, but about relationships being rebuilt within you. Through these people, God helps you recover the parts of yourself that were buried under disappointment. Their love and consistency help pull you out of hiding. They help you see that strength doesn't mean isolation. You discover that vulnerability is not weakness, but a bridge to healing. These relationships teach you how to give and receive in balance. You no longer feel drained after interactions. You feel poured into, filled up, and strengthened. That is the fruit of restoration. You begin to thrive in community again. Over time, you become that person for others. The same way someone held space for you, you begin to hold space for someone else. You speak life. You listen with compassion. You walk with people through their process just as someone walked with you through yours. This is how God redeems your relational pain, not just by giving you healing relationships, but by using you to create healing environments for others. You're no longer just a recipient of restoration, you're a vessel of it. In this kind of community, you experience the beauty of divine restoration in full. The years you spent alone are redeemed by the warmth of real connection. The friendships you lost are replaced by ones that are deeply rooted in truth. The betrayal you endured is healed by the loyalty of those who stayed. And you begin to realize that God didn't just restore what you had, He upgraded it. He didn't just bring people to comfort you, He brought people to build you. And through them, you are reminded that you were never meant to do this journey alone. One of the undeniable signs that God is restoring your lost years is when you begin to experience acceleration in your life. It's not just that you're recovering what was lost, but that you're gaining ground faster than you ever imagined. Things that used to take years begin to happen in months. The opportunities you thought you missed somehow come back around. but this time with greater favor and less resistance. God is not just giving you back what was taken, He's making up for the time it cost you. You move beyond healing and into forward motion, not crawling but soaring. Acceleration doesn't mean skipping the process, it means that the process begins to yield fruit faster than expected. It's like sowing seeds and watching them sprout overnight, not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. God begins to compress time in your favor. Where you were once delayed, now you're being delivered into moments you never saw coming. The momentum is not something you can manufacture. It's something only God can give. You wake up one day and realize that what used to be hard has become easy, not because life changed, but because grace stepped in. This season of acceleration also changes how you see yourself. You no longer define yourself by past delays or losses. You start to believe that you are worthy of progress. You begin to walk with the confidence of someone who knows they are backed by heaven. The fear of failure starts to fade because you've seen God do more in a short time than you could do with all your effort over the years. You understand that you're not just moving fast, you're moving with purpose, and every step is being ordered. As you move in this divine pace, you'll find yourself catching up to things you thought were gone forever. Relationships are restored, visions are revived, and doors open without the strain you once endured. There's a supernatural ease that follows you. It doesn't mean there's no resistance. It means the resistance can't stop what God has set in motion. What used to take all your strength now flows with divine help. You're not striving, you're flowing. That's what restoration looks like when God is in control. This acceleration also brings clarity. You begin to see why you had to wait, why you had to be broken, why the detours were necessary. It all makes sense now. You realize that God wasn't just preparing the blessing, He was preparing you. And now that you're ready, He's releasing things quickly because there's no more delay in your heart. You've healed enough to handle it, you've matured enough to steward it, you've trusted Him enough to receive it. So now, He's redeeming the time. People around you may not understand how things are happening so fast. They may question how you got there or why doors opened for you, but they didn't see the silent years, the tears, the prayers, the breaking. They didn't see the faith you held on to when nothing made sense. But God did, and now He's rewarding your faith with momentum. What took others a decade may take you a year, not because you're better, but because you're in alignment with the one who controls time itself. In the end, acceleration isn't just about speed, it's about restoration with purpose. It's God saying, you didn't miss it. I've been holding it for the right time. It's His way of restoring not only what you lost, but the time you lost grieving, doubting, and waiting. You move forward not with exhaustion, but with joy. Not trying to make up for the past, but walking confidently into the future He designed for you. This is not just recovery, it's redemption in motion. And when God accelerates you, no one can stop the pace He has set.